to start by thanking the IFCCI, the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for taking the initiative of organizing this event. As you may know, India and France have a strong foundation for cooperation in the field of renewable energy. France and India have jointly launched the International Solar Alliance at the COP21 in Paris in 2015, and have been re-elected recently as co-president and president of the alliance. More recently, in last January, both countries have launched the Indo-French Year of Environment and signed a memorandum of understanding on renewable energy, identifying 4 areas of cooperation, including hydrogen. This excellent cooperation at the institutional level is also very well translated on the ground. French companies are deeply committed to renewable energy in India, with a portfolio of nearly 22 gigawatt of wind and solar projects in operation or in development in 13 states. In addition, the French Development Agency, EFD, and its subsidiary Proparco, are clearly convinced of India's potential in this area. They have supported renewable energy and energy efficiency projects for more than 5,000 crores rupees. They are looking now at financing innovative technologies such as floating solar. AFD is also funding a project on producing low-cost, high-efficiency solar panels in India. This project is between the French Alternative Energy Commission and the Indian National Institute for Solar Energy, and it is expected to start very soon. In this context, I'm convinced that there is a huge potential to develop Indo-French cooperation in the field of green hydrogen. The development of green hydrogen offers tremendous opportunities to decarbonize several sectors, including transportation, refining, ammonia and methanol production, or to facilitate the deployment of renewable energy by improving the grid stability. In the last months, both India and France have taken a strong stance to develop green hydrogen in the near future. The French government has published a national strategy on hydrogen in September 2020, which includes an investment of 7 billion euros in the next decade. Out of this, 3.4 billion euros have been earmarked in the next 3 years for decarbonizing the industry, developing hydrogen mobility, and supporting research, innovation, and skill development. This strategy has also set a target of 6.5 gigawatts of hydrogen production capacity by 2030. In India, during the inauguration of the third ARE Invest conference, the Prime Minister Modi has announced the upcoming launch of a national hydrogen mission, and Mr. Jagdale will probably tell us more about it, as I understand that MNE is finalizing this mission. Furthermore, according to a recent publication by the International Energy Agency, India's energy consumption might grow by 70% between today and 2040. By that time, the IEA foresees that India will be the world's leading market for solar, wind, batteries, and electrolyzers, which is a perfect combination for producing green hydrogen. I'm certain that our audience today is already well aware of the huge opportunities offered by the development of low-carbon hydrogen and the importance of Indo-French business cooperation on this topic. I'm convinced that these initiatives of our economic actors are essential to develop innovative solutions as part of our efforts to build a more sustainable future together. In this regard, I'm very glad to say that today we have panelists from leading French industry leaders in the hydrogen space, such as Alstom, Airbus, Michelin, Total, and the global banking corporation, BNP Paribas. I look forward to hearing the potential of the Indo-French collaboration on hydrogen. I would like to conclude this address by thanking IFCCI once again for organizing this event. I wish you all fruitful and insightful discussions, which I'm sure will lead to concrete collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Metcalfe. Moving on, we will speak. May I now request Mr. Dinesh Jagdale, Joint Secretary, MNRE, for a special address, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all the participants joining from India, and a very good morning to all the friends from France. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to take part in this webinar on hydrogen, a game changer for India, and I would like to really applaud and compliment IFCCI for taking lead in this very important topic, which I'm sure would be a topic for the current decade to lead the energy transition story, energy transition aspects across the world. We at the Government of India strongly believe that decarbonization across all spheres of energy is very important to achieve the sustainable development goals. The current energy composition of India today, if you really look at the current composition, it's 18% that is the electricity sector, and which is the other 82%, which is a huge sector which requires various technologies, various initiatives to decarbonize, and that is where I think the aspect of hydrogen is going to be a very important factor. Let me take you through about what the ministry and we have achieved in terms of the renewable energy space. The share of renewable energy in the entire electricity mix has increased over the last 6 to 7 years. India has witnessed one of the highest rate of growth in the renewable energy capacity addition. The deployment has almost doubled, and solar is one of the sector which has been growing extremely fast. More renewable energy capacity has been added if you really compare to the thermal, the fossil-based thermal power plant. And I'm sure, I think for the last 2 to 3 years, there has been no announcement in terms of any additional investments into coal, and the entire capacity additions that have been taking place are towards the wind and solar sector. As of March 2021, we ended the year on 31st March. The total renewable energy capacity installations have grown to almost 94 gigawatts now, and another 50 gigawatts of projects are under various stages of implementation, and almost few gigawatts of projects are under tendering. So the target of 2022, which we had set up earlier, of 175 gigawatts, we are sure that we will be able to achieve in the next 2 years or so. And the 450 gigawatt target, which the Honorable Prime Minister has now set for to be achieved by the end of 2030, that is actually the game changer for the India's energy transition story. I'm pleased to inform you that India has been chosen as one of the global champion to really carry forward the theme of under the United Nations High-Level Energy Dialogue on the energy transition theme. India has well been poised. The 450 gigawatt target is now being considered one of the most ambitious target across countries, and it has been really well proven that once this 450 gigawatt target is achieved, India would one of the countries which would be really the compliant with the 2-degree rise in temperature requirements. So we are progressively moving on innovations. We have various kinds of bits that have come across the previous 2 to 3 years, whether it's round the clock or the hybrid. So there has been a lot of emphasis on renewable energy growth, and that growth based on the regulatory regime and the confidence of the investors that you can see towards the Indian regulatory regime of renewable energy has brought competitiveness, and today if you see the last bids that have emerged is around close to 2 rupees. Now, this is the point which actually is going to help the entire decarbonization through the hydrogen aspect. The green carrier or the energy carrier today, if we talk of hydrogen, would be more commercially available or more be commercially suitable because of the competitive tariffs that India has emerged in terms of renewable energy. So for the energy transition to be successful, I totally believe that affordability and environmental compatibility needs to be combined with innovative and smart climate action. This means that fossil fuels we are currently using needs to be replaced by alternative options. Now, this also applies to the gaseous and liquid energy sources as well. So against this backdrop, hydrogen is likely to play a key role in enhancing and completing the energy transition towards decarbonization. So hydrogen can be used, as we all know, as energy carrier. It can be used in fuel cells to drive hydrogen powered transport. It can be used as a storage medium. And it can also be a key role for sector coupling in areas where renewable energy, electricity cannot be used directly. Green hydrogen and the products derived from it open ways to decarbonize our energy supply. Many chemical and industrial processes depend on the use of hydrogen. For example, we are all aware that hydrogen as a base substance for producing ammonia, the fossil base, that is the gray hydrogen today, which today is used, may be replaced by green hydrogen. In addition, hydrogen in its pure form can also be used to decarbonize a wide range of industrial application production processes, for which currently no decarbonization technologies are available. And primary steel, if you really look at, hydrogen is currently considered to be the most promising solution for replacing hard coal coke. So we at the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, if you really recall the Honorable Minister's announcement, or the Prime Minister's announcement on National Hydrogen Mission, and supported by the budget announcement on the National Hydrogen Mission. Ministry as a nodal ministry is working on a draft to be released very soon. I think there has been a lot of stakeholder consultations along with important stakeholders, ministries, and the entire synopsis is being really reworked into a national hydrogen mission. Now, this requires a lot of emphasis on research for key enabling technologies, new approaches that cover this entire value chain. And that is where, even though MNRE has done a lot of research and has supported a lot of projects along with NICE and various other institutions, and some of the other ministries like Ministry of Petroleum, Natural Gas, through the oil companies, also have been really working on this new technologies, whether it's electrolysis based or bio-based process of hydrogen, methane pyrolysis, artificial photosynthesis. Some of the private sector is really keen on working on fuel cells. So it is important to take into account the particularities of individual sectors, such as air transport, maritime transport, and industry, and to harness potential spillover effects across various fields of applications. It has been estimated that the total the gray hydrogen that is being required or being produced in India is close to around 6 million tons, which is currently at the 8.5% of the global demand. That is one aspect. The second aspect for an Indian perspective is that almost close to 160 billion US dollars have been spent on imports of whether it's coal, whether it's gas, natural gas, or whether it's the crude oil. So there is a huge amount of export that is being done. And further, that 82% of the sector which needs decarbonization is now where we have to focus. One is the 450 gigawatt of renewable energy, the cost competitiveness in terms of the energy, that is electricity, that is going to be available for use of production of green hydrogen, and plus the demand that India has, plus the sectors which you identified to really decarbonize. If you really look at into the overall sphere of this particular growth story for India, I think it's a huge opportunity for investors across the globe to now come and look at India, come and make this as a manufacturing hub, and actually start producing equipments that are required to produce green hydrogen, right from electrolyzers and various other equipments that needs to be that are required to produce green hydrogen, including the fuel cells. And then obviously when we really start producing, when it becomes more feasible in next 2-3 years, I think the demand will grow and the focus will really come on further into the various aspects of hydrogen applications. We at the ministry are thinking on the use of green hydrogen in ammonia. So there is a lot of emphasis and discussions going on how can this be now brought into the forefront of the entire hydrogen growth story. So we would be in consultation with you. Just to on this platform, I should remind you that we, along with the government of France, had signed a memorandum of understanding into work on various aspects of renewable energy, including hydrogen. So between the two governments, there is a lot of synergy that we think alike in terms of what is required for the growth and what is required for decarbonizing sector, and those hard to decarbonizing sector, which I think are the emphasis on both the governments are really making. So it is my privilege to listen to the industry experts and later during the panel discussion on their thoughts on decarbonization and their success stories, which I believe is going to be demonstrated. And obviously we have such a wonderful panelists today. I thank Mr. Ravi Michaldani, Chairman of IFCCI Pune chapter, to invite us and invite me and make this as a part of your discussions on hydrogen. So look forward to this discussions as well. And one before I really want to make and announce that I think we need to closely work with the industry. We need to closely work with the research and development on hydrogen. Cost needs to come down, and that is in next 2 to 3 years that there has to be a lot of emphasis on international cooperation. We need all those success stories to come to India and become a part of our success story, our growth story. We have the massive markets, we have the skill, and together we can really enhance this cooperation on hydrogen. So thank you for giving me the time for here, and would look forward for the discussions amongst the panelists. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. That was definitely insightful. Moving on, we have our next case study on hydrogen power of the future by Mr. Amadou Sprency, Vice President, Clean Hydrogen Business Unit of Total.
Can you hear me? Is that okay?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Your camera is still not on. If you can just switch on your camera, please.
Okay, I will switch on my camera and I need to share my screen. Hopefully it will be the right one. Sorry for that. No, you don't see my screen. You don't see my screen?
We saw it for a minute and then it went back. Okay, we can see your screen now.
Yes, but you don't see.
No, your PowerPoint is, yes, you can see it now.
I hope you can see it now. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
You see in full screen, or is that okay or not?
It's not full screen, but we can still see it. That's fine.
Okay.
Perfect. It's full screen now.
Okay, thank you. If you can see that. Thank you very much for the opportunity here to talk about hydrogen. I'm very happy to participate to this conference, of course. It's oh. There's some mismatch, of course.
We can hear you okay, Adamo.
You can hear me, but you can see maybe the picture is not so nice. Huh?
We can see your presentation and we can hear you and see you okay, no problem.
Okay, so this is talking about the hydrogen game changer. What we believe now in Total, I'll make a short presentation of myself. Can you see it properly? Because I don't see it.
Yes, we can.
And I wanted to talk about hydrogen and to say that it's now. I have quite a huge background, but it's not here to talk about myself. I spent the last 30 years in the hydrogen landscape and have been promoting that at scale everywhere. And we see that the momentum is really now. I joined the business unit of hydrogen within Total that has been created in last summer. But we are a huge user of hydrogen. What we want to be as Total is really to be a multi-energy company. And our ambition is to get to net zero emission by 2050, together with the society. For our global business around the globe, but on production, but also on energy product we deliver to customers. And this ambition is supported by Total development as a broad energy company, of course, with oil and gas, low carbon electricity, and carbon neutrality solution. Hydrogen is a key component of the energy transition. We are part of the Hydrogen Council as a board member of this hydrogen organization, And we believe with the Hydrogen Council that hydrogen development by 2050 will bring more than 30 million jobs in the world. It will represent 18% of the final energy demand. We will multiply by 10 the hydrogen production compared to today. We will save more than 6 gigatons of CO2. And this will represent an annual turnover of more than $2,500 billion in sales. So it's a huge, huge opportunity for the society. And I would say it's accelerating these days, especially in the COVID period, to go and to work through decarbonization. You know, from this slide, you can see that there are a lot of different colors of hydrogen. People talk sometimes green or blue. The traditional one is a gray one, produced by methane, because hydrogen is the most common molecule on the Earth, but unfortunately, not as an atom in the Earth, but never as a molecule like hydrogen, dihydrogen. Dihydrogen is not present in our Earth. We need to produce the hydrogen, either from hydrocarbon or from water. So the simplest way to produce hydrogen today is using methane or even worse, coal to produce hydrogen. And each time you produce 1 ton of hydrogen, you release 10 tons of CO2 in the atmosphere. Today, the amount of CO2 emitted in the atmosphere by producing hydrogen is more than 800 million tons, equivalent to the CO2 emission of a country like Germany. So the newcomers are the blue and the green. The blue is you capture the CO2 when you produce this hydrogen and you store this CO2. And this is a technology that is developing today. The green one is produced by another source of hydrogen. It's water. By using green electricity, you can produce hydrogen using electrolyzer and emit 0 ton of CO2 if you use green electricity. But there are a lot of different colors of hydrogen. You see on the bottom of the slide, there is the white, the turquoise, the yellow, the fluo, etc. There are a lot of different colors. The main two important hydrogen that are developing today are the green and the blue. We have seen that hydrogen is key because it's a multi-purpose element. It's the beauty and also the complexity of this development of hydrogen. Hydrogen can be used for transportation, either directly in fuel cell or indirectly in producing synthetic fuel. It can be for aircraft, it can be also ammonia for shipping, and we have seen that. It's a huge potential. Hydrogen can be used for heating. It's already used for heating in some area. You can burn hydrogen and produce heat. It can be used for power generation, producing back electricity when you store the hydrogen. A lot of companies are working to adapt the gas turbine to hydrogen, or also to co-fire ammonia in coal-fire plants to decrease their CO2 emission. It's a huge market that is in front of us. It can be used also for energy storage, because to store renewable, and more renewable you produce, you need more storage. You need a chemical. Battery will not be enough to store huge amount of electricity. You need chemicals. And you need also hydrogen to produce chemical feedstock. We have been talking about ammonia. Ammonia is one feedstock, but you can also do a lot of other things. So you see the complexity and the sector coupling is really a key word that has been said previously. Hydrogen is a link between different energy sources and energy products. I have this map that has been made in January this year with 228 projects identified in the world. But since last January, another more than 50 projects have been announced. So we reach the 300 projects in the world. Giga project, and these are representing more than 280 billion investment. It's a huge momentum and a lot of is happening. Today, most of the projects are located in Europe, but it's spreading all around the world very quickly. We see a lot of opportunity in South America, a lot in US now coming also in this decarbonization, a lot in Australia where it has been a good place to produce renewable. Japan is also looking for importing a lot of hydrogen. And we will make a quick focus later on India, where we believe there is a huge potential. It's driven by the government that are investing a lot of public money. The announcement shows $70 billion investment in the decarbonization and especially in the hydrogen economy. More than 75 countries have announced their net zero ambition. So it's driving that topic. And also 30 countries have issued their hydrogen roadmap. So there is no way back. Hydrogen is marching on everywhere in the world. Just to illustrate one small, yes, it's a first step of 40 megawatt project we are developing in our refinery in France, in south of France, in La Mède, close to Marseille. We are working on implementing this project as a showcase also, and as a first step to decarbonize our assets, and also to deploy green hydrogen to be used to customer on the B2B or B2C in the area. So this project, 40 megawatt, only fed by renewable electricity, in that case PV, photovoltaic, and we are looking to increase also with wind to optimize the capex of the project. And it will be totally new. We will implement new technology in that project. First, we will make direct connection from DC from the PV to the electrolyzer to optimize the total efficiency. Second, we will develop a highly sophisticated software to optimize the different PV plant, because it's not possible to get only one plant with 100 megawatt in the area. So we need to have different PV plant and to optimize that integration. Secondly, we will develop a specific tool that will guarantee that we are using the electron when it is produced. So it's important to have the electron used in the electrolyzer at the time it is produced to guarantee the green hydrogen production. And third, in this platform, we will also make training for firemen to handle new technology and new plants that are going to use hydrogen. You know, by this project, we will demonstrate it also that hydrogen is the best friend of renewable and vice versa, because more renewable need more hydrogen, and more hydrogen will need more renewable. So they are working hand in hand together. This is a map that shows what are the best places in the world to produce green hydrogen. And you can see the red colors of the territory. Of course, you see China, but also South America. But India is also very well positioned. And when you have a better look on the India map, you see the area where there is a huge potential to develop competitive hydrogen, but also maybe future product made by hydrogen. And as Total, we are quite strong in India. Our chair will talk later, but we have good collaboration with Adani, which is a big key player in the area, to develop more renewable. And we are investing a lot in developing more renewable. And investing more renewable gives a good opportunity for India to produce green chemicals, starting from green hydrogen. This is a curve that shows what is happening in the market. Today, you have the black hydrogen or the gray. Of course, we anticipate that the CO2 tax will grow. So this gray hydrogen will become more and more expensive. You see the curve, the red curve. The blue hydrogen is an option in some places where you can store CO2. And the green hydrogen will become competitive in the late 2025, 2030 by investing a lot in the technology and going at scale. It's exactly what happened the last 10 years in the renewable. You know, 10 years ago, PV were very expensive, maybe 10 times compared to today's price. So we anticipate the same learning curve that will happen to hydrogen. So by 2030, for sure, green hydrogen will be competitive in the market, and it will be an opportunity to develop new territories. I took this picture. You know, it was 2 weeks ago, Jean-Yves Le Drian was talking about collaboration between India and France, and we are here today to follow that idea. We are convinced that hydrogen is a key topic and is very important to decarbonize process, industry, and mobility. We are convinced that collaboration is key to develop this technology. We believe in collaboration strongly and between country and between industries. And we are there today to open the door to more collaboration between our countries and also as Total between several industries. So it could not be better timing. I thank you, the CCI, to announce. As Total, we are very active since 1 year in a lot of organizations because all this market is also driven by regulation that we could get in place. We are the Hydrogen Council, we are member of the European Hydrogen Alliance, we joined the Japan Hydrogen Association, of course we are member of the Clean Fuel Ammonia Association, France Hydrogen, as we are company France, ammonia as an energy, and also we are working for zero carbon shipping. So a lot of momentum and work has to be done as a collaborative to develop this market. And I will end now, and thank you for listening, and available for any question if you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Skrenzi. If there are any questions, I will request all our panelists, our audience to please mention their questions in the question box. We will take up the questions at a later stage. At the moment, I do not see any questions yet, but requesting all the audience to please mention their questions accordingly.
Thank you.
Moving forward, our next case study is on hydrogen FCEV mobility Hyundai Motor Group. And speaking about this topic is Ms. Helen Jung, Senior Executive Director, BNP Paribas, Seoul branch. Ms. Helen, if you could please put on your camera. Perfect. This is perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you for your invitation today. And my name is Helen Jung, and I'm in charge of the Hyundai Motor Group. I would like to share the screen of my slide.
We can see your screen, ma'am.
Can you see my screen?
We could see it. Yes, now we can see it.
Okay. So I cannot see myself. So I just see my screen. I will explain it. The first slide is our BNP Paribas is we are very focused on the hydrogen economy. And last October we had some sustainability future forum in Korea with Mr. Kim, the head of fuel cells of Hyundai Motor Group. So Hyundai Motor Group is the frontier of the hydrogen fuel cell EV mobility, and that's why we invited him, and we share our BNP policy about the hydrogen, and at the same time we also updated the hydrogen economy. Next slide shows that shows some paradigm shift. So key factors of the industrial revolution it shows, for example, network and the power source and the transportation. The network is comparing to the 19th centuries, now is the 21st century, and IoT and 5G is already established. And the power source, different from the past, now is solar and the wind and the hydrogen is boosted. And the transportation is now is still the conversion of the engine is still combustion engine is still very common, but recently the EV car is also very popular, like a Tesla, and also the Japanese and the Korean companies also released the EV car, and it was commercialized already. And the next one is the fuel cell EV. And we are also thinking about autonomous and some personal aviation of, the vehicle and etc. So global movement is toward to the decarbonization in the 21st century, I think. And the next moving, so recently many of the countries, they are very focused on the hydrogen economy. So that's why in order to boost the hydrogen economy, many governments announced their own mid and long-term roadmap for hydrogen. For example, Germany, they announced the last June that they will invest 9 billion euro for a hydrogen field. And the EU is also announced some establishment of a hydrogen society by the EU by 2015. And also, they will establish some clean hydrogen alliance in the EU. And particularly the California in US is a little bit behind than the Europe country. But then California itself is they announced they will make some clean truck regulation, and that's why until the 2045 they will launch the zero emission heavy duty trucks and in California. So these all kinds of government support is started already. So in Korea is also, we are very focused on the hydrogen economy. Our Korean government is planned to produce the 6.2 million hydrogen car by the 2040. And also at the same time, in order to do that, hydrogen refueling station is important as an infrastructure. So we are planning to build 1,200 hydrogen refueling station by the 2040. So currently you can see the next slide. When we see only the car part, some mobility part, in the past, some combustion engine is the common thing, and in the transit model is some kind of a hybrid. Hybrid car was very attractive and popular due to the increased price of the oil. But I think in order to go into the eco-friendly the environment, in that case, we need some CO2 emissions should be reduction, and at the same time, that's why we are going to the EV. So recently, EV car is very popular, but EV is also, it is not pure the green energy car. The reason why it's electricity is where it's coming from. So that when we consider this kind of electricity production, at the end of the day, we are thinking hydrogen, the fuel cell EV will be the final stage, the future goal to make a green environment. So the many people is asking me hydrogen car, we have never seen it before. When I have some discussion with global people, I have never seen. And is there any commercialized? Yeah, it's true. The Hyundai Motor, they developed the fuel cell technology since 1998. So it had passed 20 years to develop the hydrogen fuel cell technology. So that's why the Hyundai Motor, they mass produced the world first fuel cell EV in 2013. And they released the Nexo. It is a commercial passenger car in 2018. And frankly speaking, as your RM, I covered for the Hyundai Motor over 23 years. And when they mentioned about the hydrogen fuel cell 10 years ago, I was really suspicious because there's two things: regulation and the infrastructure. But when I see these kind of the current environment change, the speed to move to the hydrogen fuel cell EV is very fast, much faster than before. The reason why is the fuel cell, fuel cell development is already done, and also most of the government in the developed countries, they make some regulation to support for the hydrogen economy, and at the same time, the hydrogen refueling station is not difficult one. So that's why it was much faster. And also, Hyundai Motor perspective, they already they released the second generation of fuel cell EV, the passenger car Nexo, in 2018, and it was sold to the market in 10,000 only. But I think after setting up some refueling station, these cars will be sold to the market more. And the next one is fuel cell EV is not only for the passenger. Hyundai Motor developed the fuel cell heavy duty truck as well. And basically, the government decided they're more focused on the coach buses and the mid-sized one. But for a commercial perspective, heavy duty truck is more efficient. So the reason why is heavy duty truck have some regular road for the service. So Hyundai Motor, they launched the heavy duty truck, the hydrogen heavy the fuel cell the truck last July to export to the Switzerland. In Switzerland, the Hyundai Motor established a joint venture with the H2 Energy. This company is provided some rental service to the retailer, and the reason why is Hyundai Motor chose the Switzerland is Adamo also mentioned there is some level of the green, the hydrogen, the gray, blue, and green. But in Switzerland, the hydrogen is produced by the H2O, the water itself. So we call it the ecosystem. Through this ecosystem with the water, the hydrogen can be produced. So H2 Energy is one of the joint partner with the Hyundai Motor, and they are producing the hydrogen. At the same time, they are making the refueling station in Switzerland. So that's why the Hyundai Motor export and provided the hydrogen fuel cell heavy truck in Switzerland. And these H2 production and network service will be provided by the H2 Energy. When we comparing to the combustion, the vehicle and the hydrogen vehicle, and now it's a hydrogen truck is much expensive. But when we see the tax for some CO2 emission in Switzerland, I think according to the mileage of utilization, the Swiss charge the tax for the CO2 emission. So it is very expensive, and as time goes on, it will be much higher. So at the end of the day, when we have some comparison the table. When we see these kind of things, it's some efficiency and some economic efficiency is could be a similar level. So at the end of the day, this kind of a hydrogen truck will be more the sold and more faster than passenger car. The reason why is a truck has always they have some regular regular course to a regular service. So that's why the refueling station is also needed smaller than the passenger. So that's why the Hyundai Heavy is launched the heavy duty truck in Switzerland. And then at the end of the day, they based on that, they will expand it to other European countries as well. Next slide is Hyundai Motor. Now Hyundai Motor is the core group to develop the hydrogen technology. So they are the leading of the hydrogen economy. So recently they are working with various Korean conglomerate and global companies. And for example, this is a non-automotive business. Particularly, the hydrogen ship is also in Korea, the Hyundai Heavy Industry Group and our shipbuilders, they're also developing some, the small ship for the hydrogen, the utilization. So also the train, the Hyundai Motor also have one of the train companies, Hyundai Rotem, and they're also developing some of these hydrogen train as well. And recently, the chairman, Mr. Jung, of Hyundai Motor Group, he announced that you will also focus on the urban air mobility. And some emergency generator is in the middle of the road. There's a smaller car. It will be faster to moving for the emergency, some kind of things. So all of things can be applied for the hydrogen technology. So Hyundai Motor Group is plan to invest 6.3 billion by 2030 to secure their leadership, and also they plan to sell some fuel cell EV car, the 500K by the 2030 and etc. But I think it is very small portion still, because when I see one of the plant in overseas, the 500K is just the one plant. But I think the EV also, we are starting to purchase from the market, and from the consumer perspective, EV could be the more attractive than before. So I think the time will come soon, and even if it takes more time though, we are globally all over the world is preparing for the hydrogen economy, and at the end of the day, this technology will make our environment more cleaner, much cleaner, and good environment. So yeah, that is my presentation, and thank you for your listening my today's call. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zhang. We now have a panel discussion on hydrogen, a game changer for India, and I invite the moderator, Mr. Ravin Mirchandani, Chairman of IFCCI Pune Chapter and Chairman Managing Director of Adore Powertron. Joining him on the panel is Glenn Lubin, VP Zero Emission Aircraft Airbus, Mr. Sandeep Joshi, Director Government Affairs, Alstom India, Mr. M.R. Beaufort, CEO BNP India branches and head CIB India, Mr. Arun Jora, Managing Director MITC Michelin India, and Mr. Jose Inacio, Country Chair India Total.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Can I confirm you can hear me?
Yeah, you can.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and good morning if you're joining from Europe, and welcome to Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry in India and our panel today on hydrogen. My name is Ravin Mirchandani and I'm the chairman of Adore Powertron. My company actually makes hydrogen DC power sources for hydrogen electrolyzer plants around the world, and we've got our DC power sources in over 75 countries over the last 30 years. Today's panel is an interesting one. Approximately 13.7 billion years ago, all the matter and energy in the universe were created in one enormous explosion that we popularly call the Big Bang. Two gases came about as a result of the Big Bang, hydrogen and helium. And the present data available to us in 2021 indicates that at that time, hydrogen and helium made up nearly all the matter that existed in the universe, 75% being hydrogen, 24% being helium, and 1% being everything else. We today constitute that 1%. Since then, hydrogen has played a role of a shadow cousin to other gases that were discovered by humankind as part of the scientific and industrial and engineering revolutions over the last 200 years. Hydrogen came to much infamy with the Zeppelin accident and the hydrogen bomb, and as has become evident in many root cause analysis, even one by the FAA in the US, the Zeppelin accident for the Berlin to New York airship had very little to do with hydrogen and more to do with the design of the airship and how it was put to use. It's been 100 years from that infamous end to the excitement around the molecule, but today we're here to discuss how hydrogen has finally reclaimed its rightful position in the energy chain and how hydrogen is going to change the way we do many things like fly, take the train, drive on the roads, or even harness our solar, wind, and wave energy. In effect, hydrogen is going to help humans clean up our act again. From the mid-industrial revolution to today, we have been polluting our air, our food chains, and also the cities that we live in. Hydrogen has the potential to change all of that and allow us to go back to the air before the internal combustion engine and to have water streams before hydrocarbons polluted them. It was only 150 years ago that whales were hunted for their oil so that we could have illumination in our homes and streets at night. It is so hard to contemplate that today, that a life was taken so that we could have heating or illumination in our homes. Hydrogen has the power to make us feel the same way about other unreplenishable resources that we take from our planet on a daily basis, to fuel our basic needs such as driving our cars, heating our homes, cooking, or even powering our factories, because hydrogen can be made from the sun, the wind, and the energy of the waves of our ocean. In essence, hydrogen helps us firm all the renewable energy we can make. It democratizes our energy world and frees us from the geopolitical tyrannies of fighting for and transporting hydrocarbons and oil. And what's amazing is that for the most, it can come from water and its emissions are water as well. So we are in for an exciting discussion on this IFCCI panel. And we have some very eminent global panelists who I'm just about to introduce. Today, first up, we have Glenn Levelin, who's Vice President of the Zero Emissions Aircraft Division at Airbus. He's responsible for the activities and plans that Airbus is implementing to achieve their ambitions to be the first major manufacturer of a zero-emission commercial aircraft to the market. Glenn studied engineering at Queen's University in Belfast and has established a career in aviation and aerospace, working with Airbus for many years, and he's also perhaps one of the early adopters of hydrogen and an enthusiast of hydrogen in his industry. Joining us is also Sandeep Joshi, Director, Government Affairs at Alstom in India. Alstom recently tested the first hydrogen-powered train in Europe. Sandeep himself was previously Commercial Director responsible for expanding Alstom's footprint in South Asia and has over 30 years of experience and is an expert on mobility. He was previously Managing Director of the Signaling and Digital Mobility Division of Alstom and managed Alstom's largest innovation center in the world. He has also delivered India's first Make in India metro, the Cochin Metro. Joining us also Arun Jora, who so many of us here at IFCCI know. He currently manages the growth strategy and operations of Michelin in India, Michelin's technology center, as Managing Director. Arun has 30 years of experience in 3 continents in diverse sectors, including power, new age transportation, AI, and mergers and acquisitions. More importantly, he has developed and been part of the team that made the world's first ever hydrogen-propelled hybrid when he was working with Ford in Detroit. And he was also the leader of the mission that made India's first hydrogen vehicle, the Mahindra Rickshaw. He also has international patents in the hydrogen space for mobility. We have Jose Ignacio Sanz Saez, the Vice President of Gas, Renewable and Power in India and Country Chair of Total in India. He's also the Director of Adani Green Energy and Total Projects in India. Jose is a graduate from the Polytechnic University of Madrid in Spain and has 27 years of experience in the energy sector, having previously worked with British Gas and also Enagas in Spain. He was previously Managing Director of Total Energy in the US and of the Total E&P affiliates in Bolivia, USA, and Australia. And finally, a dear friend of IFCCI, Aymar Beaufort, who is the CEO and country head of BNP Paribas Bank in India. Aymar was previously head of BNP in Vietnam and a member of the bank's executive committee for Southeast Asia. Aymar too has over 30 years experience in banking and finance, having worked in many countries. He moved to India just before the March 2020 lockdown, so he has seen a very different India from the rest of us, particularly when it comes to traffic on the Bombay roads. He's probably seen what hydrogen will make Bombay look like. Gentlemen, welcome to the panel, and it is a pleasure to be discussing with such an eminent group of people. Very rarely does hydrogen see something like this panel here today. I'd also like to give a shout out to Joanna Sampson, who is the editor of the only magazine for the industry in the world, H2 View. She's one of the participants today. Thank you for joining us, Joanna. First question then, since we are going to talk about aviation, trains, roads, and energy firming, perhaps I'll go straight to aerospace, which is the excitement for everybody in the room. Glenn, Airbus is pushing extremely hard to power aviation from renewable energy, as this has become an urgent imperative given how popular aviation is around the world and the impact it has. It's hard to achieve it in a sustainable manner, given you can't put solar panels on a plane. In this context, why is H2 important for aviation, and will you use hydrogen in its pure, liquid, or gas form on board? And how would you address the safety issues?
So I think hydrogen is a key ingredient in aviation's future, and a decarbonized future, which is the type of future which we are imagining for aviation. The hydrogen molecule itself can be used in two forms on an aircraft. One, we can use it in synthetic fuels, so combined with carbon, preferably captured through direct air carbon capture technology in a Fischer-Tropsch process, then used to create power to liquid synthetic fuel. And that's already quite an easy way to get hydrogen on board aircraft. In fact, our aircraft today are compatible with that type of fuel. What we're also looking at, and it's specifically the focus of the project called Zero E, is the use of hydrogen in its raw form on the aircraft. And we see advantages to using hydrogen in its raw form on the aircraft in terms of, for example, cost per ton of CO2 avoided. We know that the environmental challenge is as much an economic one, and so reducing the cost per ton of CO2 avoided is going to be key. We also see it having potential to have some of the best climate credentials compared to every other option. You know, if we look at the complete climate impact, if we deal with this from a life cycle analysis perspective, which I think is going to be really important and will have growing importance, then hydrogen use in its raw form is looking very promising in that respect. And what we see happening over the next decades is that hydrogen is going to be a fundamental part of society, that the cost is going to come down, the availability is going to come up. For sure, we have challenges on the technology side. For sure, we have challenges on the ecosystem side. Renewable or green hydrogen is not currently ubiquitous. It is not available in the quantities we need. But as various industries like aviation, like rail, like road, are seeing that really hydrogen is going to be key, hydrogen is going to be more available. And I think as several industries, we can pull the ecosystem in the right direction to make sure hydrogen is really, green hydrogen is really replacing fossil fuel in the future.
I want to push you a little bit then on the safety elements of hydrogen in the air, because that'll be the question that's coming to everybody's mind. I've been to the BMW project for hydrogen mobility, and they did a crash test on the BMW, and the only thing that survived was a hydrogen tank. They built it so safe. I'm sure Airbus is doing something similar. Can you touch on safety in respect to using hydrogen for aviation?
Yeah, good that you bring that up. So safety is the thing that we don't compromise on. It's the requirement that just never gets debated. We have used kerosene for years. Kerosene isn't an inert substance, so we design aircraft. We take design precautions on aircraft, which are fairly significant in order to manage the safety of kerosene in a way which allows us to have, I think, quite an impressive track record. The procedures in terms of kerosene usage around aircraft are also developed in such a way that we have an impressive record for using kerosene. We will need to have different technologies in the future, different design solutions in the future, and perhaps different procedures, but we want to limit the differences as much as possible compared to what we have today for airlines, for example. So there will be things that are different, but the requirement, the safety requirement, will be unchanged. It's just a question of the technologies and the procedures that we put in place in order to meet those undiscussable safety requirements.
The other question that comes to mind then, Glenn, is how long before we're going to be flying on a hydrogen plane? What are the milestones, timelines that you're working on, given that you're leading that effort?
Yeah, we've set ourselves the target to have a zero-emission aircraft entering into service by 2035. If we work backwards from that, what that essentially means is that we need to be flying hydrogen propulsion systems in around the 2025 timeframe to give us the confidence that these systems perform as we want them to in terms of aircraft performance and in terms of economics. We have a technology maturation plan which we've set out and we've started deploying to bring several key components to the level we need. In many cases, the fundamental technology has been demonstrated by other industries or even by the aviation industry. You know, gas turbines have actually flown in the past combusting hydrogen. Liquid hydrogen storage tanks that we're talking about using have been used in the car industry in a limited series vehicle in the 2010s. For sure, we have to scale that technology. For sure, we have to bring the mass, the weight down of that technology. But we believe we have a credible roadmap. Ambitious, but we think that that's what's required when we look at the climate challenge that's in front of us.
Thank you very much, Glenn. About the only industry that's not represented here today is perhaps maritime. Having covered aerospace, let's go to the railway sector then. And my next question is for Sandeep Joshi from Alstom. Sandeep, Alstom is a very impressive record on railways, and you've demonstrated the first hydrogen train in Europe. There is an Italian company, I think Coradia, who's done something similar, and there's also Hydroflex from the University of Birmingham that has retrofitted a diesel train for H2 hydrogen propulsion. What has already been done in the railway sector besides that to propel hydrogen, and what are the timelines in your estimation before we're riding on hydrogen trains around the world?
Thank you, Ravin, and good afternoon to everybody. Yes, the first launch has happened. So definitely now we have a proven product in the market in Europe right now, hydrogen train, which is Coradia Island. And this is the first passenger train, the regional train, which is running for last 2 years. So most of the characteristics as well as the safety aspects have been proven. No doubt, everybody is going as far as the railway hydrogen initiative is concerned step by step, but definitely the product is available now. The innovation has started sometime in 2012, 2013, and we have come a long way in establishing a product in terms of a passenger train, which is definitely a zero emission train with running with the help of hydrogen fuel cells. So yes, the product is available now slowly because there are certain constraints in terms of infrastructure which all the countries are managing slowly. And when we are going towards the hydrogen trains and zero emission fundamentals, definitely how to convert the diesel propulsion into the hydrogen propulsion, whether we go in for the hybrid, we go in for hydrogen fuel cells plus batteries. The current train which is running is hydrogen fuel cells plus batteries for storing the power what is being produced. So yes, as soon as we manage the infrastructure required for hydrogen trains in terms of fuel tanks, in terms of storage, in terms of transportation, I think hydrogen is the answer for next decade for going towards the decarbonization, going towards the zero emission transportation.
So Sandeep, in terms of India, we have electric, which is intercity transport or intra-city transport, and then we have diesel locomotives that are the long distance and freight. I'm interested in your opinion on which element of that chain do you see moving first, and also India is a country of limited resources, so do you see the market being a retrofit market? For example, would you retrofit the EMUs running around Bombay and Chennai and Calcutta to hydrogen, or do you see it as being new capital over the next 20-25 years, replacing diesel with hydrogen as diesel replaced steam over the last 20, 30 years?
Yes, that has to happen. Looking forward, I don't see any reason for not happening this. The first initiative has been taken by Indian government in asking for the expression of interest of retrofitment of the locos. Yeah, so in India, I think we will go first to locos and then through the passenger trains, because that is might be the right way for India to go ahead. So we have submitted the first expression of interest. Uh, at the background, the work has started. So definitely, as you say, Ravin, is the first market will be the retrofitment and then the full-fledged passenger trains. And if you see the timeline, it totally depends on the how quickly we turn this initiative into the reality, and also how fast we can develop the infrastructure. But definitely, yes, in the coming decade, this will come up also in India, because the country also has a clear target of emission-free mobility, as well as the energy saving initiatives.
So 2 quick questions on that then, Sandeep. And the first one is, do you see any roadblocks in terms of the skill sets in the country in being able to achieve this? And also, more importantly, which segment in your experience in mobility do you think will move first? Do you think it's rail, road, maritime, in terms of India?
First, taking the first question, yes, definitely the mobility or the railway technology is not right now available in India. But yes, it is available with specific companies like we have this technology. So it's our commitment also given during the various discussions with the ministries is that yes, we are very much adhering to Make in India policies of Indian government. So it will totally depend on how the market is developing, and we are definitely ready for transferring the technology to Alstom in India, as we have done right now for the urban metro transport or the mainline transport, where we have the largest engineering center in India, and the design technology has been totally transferred to India. So definitely we are committed towards that. But yes, what you say is right. Right now we do not have the railway technology for the hydrogen initiative, but it will develop based on the market which is coming up in India. Going forward to your next question, it's very difficult to say whether the road will go first or the railway will go first, because right now the road transport is more focusing on the battery operated or electric buses to get rid of the diesel usage on the road. So this is the first initiative which has been taken. So electric buses and electric transport is quite in demand right now. The next step will be the hydrogen from that, if it is required. And I think uh, for road, when you decide a particular technology for transportation, I think electric bus technology or electric road transport technology has some advantage when it comes to intercity transport, because the distance which the batteries can carry suits that. But when you talk about the interstate road transport, then definitely for tomorrow, the hydrogen is the solution. And definitely for railway mobility, hydrogen is the solution.
Thank you very much for that, Sandeep. Coming to you, Arun, you are perhaps the most eminently experienced person in hydrogen on the panel today. In your opinion, how is hydrogen being used for mobility? What have companies done overseas? What have companies done in India? And how can we bring this to India faster?
Thank you, Ravin, for that question. And first of all, I'm really delighted to be on this panel. Thank you, IFCCI, for inviting me. You know, most of us talk about mobility because we see mobility. There's a lot talked about mobility in the hydrogen space. In addition to that, I'll just give maybe a 30 seconds preamble. Hydrogen actually is applied in chemical and industrial processes, oil refining. They're used in the manufacture of fertilizers and methanol. It's used in the metallurgical industry and in the steel production, and that steel is used in the automotive industry. And there are a lot of these buildings and hospitals, for example, in South Africa, or you also have these Bosch's hydrogen boilers, and things like that, that are using a lot of these hydrogen. And in the mobility space, interestingly, I mean, we will see what Glenn talked about in the aviation space, what Sandeep talked about in the railway space. In the maritime applications as well, hydrogen is used. It's used as liquid hydrogen, and they use them in powering yachts. And there are companies who are doing this. Shipping is another big application for hydrogen. And this is again limited to low carbon fuel options, since today that is what is available. And I mean, we have to move towards that, towards low carbon fuels. Coming to mobility industry on road and off road, sort of zooming in that, we did hear Helen talk about how Hyundai has done various vehicles, whether passenger cars or public transportation vehicles. And BMW, as you know, has been working on hydrogen engine vehicles for many years. And and if you fast forward that and go to the US, I mean, the Department of Energy in the late 90s, early 2000 had announced a program for hydrogen fuel cell vehicles and hydrogen engine vehicles. And at that time, you had the big three at that time, which was the Ford, GM, and Chrysler, and they partnered with the Department of Energy. They built a lot of these demo vehicles, and that was a program where I actually got into hands-on into hydrogen engine vehicles. And and when I say we, at Ford built our first hydrogen engine hybrid vehicle. Amazing technology. When we started doing that project, it was like, oh, we are going to have hydrogen, which is colorless, odorless, very light. We can't even see it. We don't even know if it's leaking in the car. And then a high voltage battery, which is 300 volts, sitting in the trunk. And it's a very lethal combination. And how do you design the safety system for this? And you asked that question earlier, just now. And designing that safety system was a fantastic challenge and opportunity. In fact, I've got a couple of patents on that as well. But that was a superb thing, because in the door, in a normal car or in a normal bus, even when you open the door of the vehicle, there is a very slight spark that is not noticeable by the eye. And if there's a hydrogen leakage, hydrogen basically tends to sit on the floor, on the roof, and also in the wheel wells of a vehicle. So can you imagine, we had to change those switches. We had to actually look at the switches of the ignition as well. And that was the kind of safety detail that we had to look at. And when we built those vehicles, they went all over the globe, not only in the US, but then to Europe and also in Asia. And that was a fantastic thing. Then, that was something that went into the hydrogen engine area. Then the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, of course, everybody's got a lot of these. Toyota has been making, hydrogen fuel cell buses for a very long time. And then as this hydrogen deployment grew, and you also mentioned that, in Europe, in Berlin, they built a lot of these hydrogen gas stations to fuel, these vehicles. Now, zooming in on India, and it's again not very well known. Again, in India, there's Ashok Leyland, Tata, Mahindra. They have actually publicly showcased their hydrogen vehicles. They have buses. I got the opportunity to work on the first ever hydrogen three-wheeler vehicle, and this was with Unido, IIT Delhi, and Mahindra. And we built this vehicle. It was a small fuel cell from one of the one of the labs that is in the country, and they are in the south, CISRI labs. We actually integrated with them on this particular vehicle, the fuel cell, and we showed it off actually as a technology demonstrator in the 2008 auto show. So even today, I mean, right, as we speak, there are 50 hydrogen CNG vehicles, the high-ten vehicles in the NCR area at this point that are actually running on a pilot basis. So the promise for hydrogen in the Indian mobility space is very high. And if you look at the National Hydrogen Energy Roadmap, that was first the generation one that came out in 2005. That was under the leadership of Ratan Tata and the Ministry of Renewable and uh, natural resources. So this is something that started then. Right now, fast forward as we speak, we are coming up with the second generation of the hydrogen energy roadmap. So it's sort of mobility in India, especially, it's a clean form of energy. Of course, we know that the charging time is slow. And then, we can use 700 bar pressure cylinders, which we can use the same safety features as are set up for the CNG. And of course, there's no carbon emissions and things like that. And of course, and then we heard Dinesh talk about various government of India projects and support for these. So that is sort of in a nutshell about how we are percolating hydrogen. And again, everything permeates and percolates into the aerospace, from the aerospace industry into the mobility space because of the affordability aspects of the whole business.
So I want to ask the question that I think everyone's asking. You're from a tire company, and you're sitting here on a hydrogen panel, and you're actually the biggest expert of hydrogen on this panel. What's a tire company like Michelin doing, kicking the tires in the hydrogen industry?
Interesting question, and thank you for that provocative question. And interestingly, all of us know as Michelin as a tire company. Okay, now Michelin, besides doing tires, is also in services and solutions. And when it comes specifically to hydrogen, we have been doing 15 years. We've been doing R&D on hydrogen fuel cells, and this is again in line with our strategy for people, profit, and planet. And what we are actually projecting is 30% of our turnover by 2030 will be a result of this diversification in fuel cell production, 3D printing, and the like. And you did see last year or maybe a year plus ago, we signed this joint venture with Faurecia. This is a 50-50 joint venture where it's called the Symbio, and it's all over the news, of course, on the internet. And we are looking at hydrogen systems for light vehicles, commercial vehicles, buses, and trucks. And the idea here is to give birth to this world leader in hydrogen systems for mobility. So we are actually going to be using that, integrating them into vehicles. And Helen talked about the heavy duty vehicles and things like that. So that is sort of our our ambition. But more interestingly, I would tell you what we are doing in Europe, and more so in France. There is a project called the Zero Emission Valley project. So that is basically developing hydrogen mobility in French regions level through the ZEV. It's a €100 million project. So we are one of the shareholders of in this particular project through Impulsion and HY Impulsion, and this is for installing and operating 20 hydrogen stations. So we are going to be installing a lot more of this, and the ambition is, we will be supplying green hydrogen, and we'll deploy them in 1,200 vehicles by year 2023. And we want to duplicate the same success of the ZEVs in other regions of France and around the world. And also, you must have seen a few months ago in the 24-hour Le Mans, the 24-hour endurance race, we actually featured a hydrogen electric racing car there. It was all over the news and also over LinkedIn. And so, so we are into it. We are sort of perceived as the core. Our core business is tires, of course, but then we are into hydrogen. We're very much in it here. In India, we are looking for sort of opportunities that we can actually pursue as we go forward in the whole hydrogen economy.
Well, hopefully the
I hope that
hydrogen
answers
car,
your question.
it did, and I hope the hydrogen car won that race. There is a question that's on the chat that you could touch on briefly, maybe on 2 lines, and that is, since you would know, given that you've got 800 engineers working for you on hydrogen, where can people upskill on fuel cell knowledge and hydrogen systems knowledge, particularly in India, for example?
I think most of the academic institutions have they offer these courses, of course, and just like what the government is doing, the electric vehicle industry, upskilling. There are programs that are being put in place for the hydrogen applications, hydrogen safety, hydrogen storage, hydrogen distribution. Because of course, one is the upstream. Mainly, what we've been talking all along is the downstream applications: storage, distribution, safety, and also basically transportation. And that is one of the big challenges as well, and the security concern from a safety point of view.
Thank you, Arun. So I want to then focus on the enabler in this industry. If you look at the electric vehicles industry, it was the startups that really became the dissonance in the industry. Tesla was a startup in India. You've got Ather Energy as a startup, and it was the startups that forced the incumbents in the industry to move to electric vehicles. And I forecast that perhaps hydrogen will be similar. In fact, you're already seeing it. Nel was a very small company. Nikola was a very small company. Actor is a very small company. And yet they're able to make such big differences in the industry, forcing the big mamas, so to speak, to move and look seriously at hydrogen. What is the enabler? Is the finance and the banking industry. And so I'll come to Aymar with this question. Aymar, how does the banking industry view hydrogen today?
Well, thank you, Ravin. First, I'm very happy to be here. I'm definitely the odd one out because you have four very smart engineers, Arun, Sandeep, Glenn, and Jose Ignacio, and I am the banker. But it's clear that four companies who are here are strategic clients of BNP Paribas, and in fact, we have a lot in common. But I would like to start by quoting someone who is very well known, a French writer, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And he said, as for the future, your task is not to foresee it, but to enable it. And I think this is clearly something that the banker should play a role. You know, at the end of the day, as a banker, because we are not engineer, except our CEO, we have to keep on doing our job, which is to finance something which is workable, finance something which is viable. But at the same time, it is very clear that in the last 10 years, a bank like BNP Paribas, and it's not the only bank, we have moved our business model. We have engaged in the energy transition. And I think we all agree that 20 years ago, we may have read lots of articles saying that solar power would never be a true solution because it is much too expensive. And obviously, Jose Ignacio will explain it 20 times better than me. But now nobody doubts that solar power is something that is a must in the energy transition. And I think today on the hydrogen, if I may, you may still read, and I'm not speaking of the people who are around this table today, but you may still read lots of articles or YouTube movies on people who have big doubts on hydrogen. But I think this is where states have to play a key role because the incentives through tax schemes that state will bring is going to be crucial. This is where the big companies we have today, and hopefully they are not the only one, but definitely those four companies today have a key role to play because they are a locomotive, if I may say, looking at Alstom saying that they have those big corporates have to play a locomotive role to make things moving, and definitely the banks and BNP Paribas has to play a key role. And you know, it's very interesting because I've been working in this bank for 30 years, and I think that for the solar energy and the wind energy, banks were not really at the very early stage of being involved with the industry. But what I see for the hydrogen is that the Council Hydrogen, where there is many corporates, the bank started not the first day, but maybe the second day to be around the table because there is a clear willingness on the finance industry side to say, we know that we have to play a part of it. Maybe we are not the engineers, but we have to understand well to be sure we will accompany this new technology. So there is many ways a bank can intervene. With a small, I would say, startup, it's going to be around bringing equity, our equity or investor equity. The mid-size will be to help them to IPO and also gain access to the capital markets. And for the project and the big corporates, well, this will turn around project finance, guarantees, leasing, and the way we finance our corporates globally. But it is true, and it is not a negative note, but we have to finance viable projects, and the bank will not be there to finance things which doesn't work at the end of the day, because everybody expects that when they put their money in the bank, they want to find it at the end of the day. And for that, we have to do a good business on ensuring that when we lend money, we lend it to viable projects.
I want to be a little provocative, though. It's very impressive that the BNP is already part of the Hydrogen Council, but I would hazard that perhaps it's because the Hydrogen Council has companies such as Total and Cummins, really keep the big boys, and the small companies that are trying to make the dissonance are going to be struggling to get the finance. So for the startups that will be innovative, is the banking finance industry in any way prepared to help make a change, or are they left to private equity and venture capital?
So I would tell you definitely yes, BNP Paribas is part of the hydrogen circle because our big clients are there, and we have to be with our big clients because I mean this is the partnership in which we are. So I think yes, it makes sense. Second thing is hopefully for us, we don't have only large corporate as a client. If not, the world will be a bit too small. And we are working with the small corporates and the startup. Obviously, the amount we are talking about are not the same. They are at the tune of their size, but we have organization, we have structure in the bank, we do venture capitalist, so we can, on our own money, invest in those startups, and we can also bring the investors we know who are keen to invest in startups. But again, we will need to make sure that we understand the story, that we believe in the story, and sometimes we will be right, sometimes we will be wrong. Hopefully, we will be more often right than wrong. But I believe that today, BNP Paribas, more than ever, has proved its capacity to intervene at any stage of the scale, from the small to the big.
Thank you for that, Aymar. In fact, BNP Paribas is also one of the oldest banks in India, so you have proven that you do have the long-term sustaining capability in industries that are emerging, such as a country or a industry form such as hydrogen. Moving then to another enabler, and that is the logistics, and that's the company that makes sure that hydrogen is available for you, just as it has the hydrocarbon molecule. I'll ask this question to Jose from Total. Jose, Total is the world's premier energy supplier today, and you're transforming yourselves rapidly to green energy from oil and gas. That's, you know, it's breathtaking to see that you are so committed to it and that you're making such a big change. I'm interested, what is the journey that you're going through inside of Total that's taking you from hydrocarbon molecules to green energy molecules, and how does it feel to be in the company right now?
Well, Ravin, good afternoon to you, and thank you very much for the organizers for inviting me. It feels great. It feels great, that I can tell you. But let me start by sharing a personal story with you. And I will liaise with that, because why are we talking so much about hydrogen now? I started my career, you mentioned the Big Bang. It was a bit after the Big Bang, but according to my children, not much after the Big Bang. But I started as a research and development engineer. And one of my first projects was to work on hydrogen and fuel cells for mobility. And I remember as a junior engineer, full of enthusiasm and energy, picturing fleets of hydrogen cars in a couple of years' time. My boss, who was more experienced, told me, you know, slow down, slow down. And yet here we are today. And today we're talking about hydrogen for aviation, hydrogen for road transportation, for rail transportation. What has changed? In my mind, two things. One of them is technology. Of course, technology evolves, costs come down. There's still some way to go, but progress is being made. But the other fundamental change is being a change in society. And society has changed, and probably last year, 2020, was a turning point. And there was now broad consensus that we all need to do something against climate change. Climate change is a reality, and we need to tackle this issue. And what does it mean for an energy company like Total? We, not so long ago, we were saying that we were an oil and gas company. Today, we're not saying it. But we published our climate ambition last year. Adamo mentioned it, going to net zero by 2050 together with society. It is taking a stand, seeing that we are responsible. We are a company providing energy, and we need to supply affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy. We need to be an actor in the world in which we live. We cannot be away from society, and it is clear where society wants to go. So as you mentioned, and you used a good word, which is the word transformation, we are transforming ourselves from an oil and gas company to a broad energy company. Hopefully, if our shareholders approve it, this will even have a change by the end of next month, and we hopefully will become Total Energies. And the dilemma that we have now is that as a company, we need to supply more energy, and we need to bring emissions down. How can we do it? How do we engage in this transformation? We have seen that we need to do it through 4 pillars. One of them is gas. It's going to be natural gas, which is a transition fuel. It's a fossil fuel. It has emissions, but it's a transition fuel, and it's better with regard to emissions, much better than coal, better than liquid hydrocarbons. And in the gas part, we'll have biogas, we'll have renewable gas, and we'll have hydrogen, and it's part of it. The other part of the second pillar of our strategy is electricity. And as you say, we're transforming ourselves, we're investing massively into electricity and into green electricity. This year, we invested more than $2 billion to enter into Adani Green Energy in India to develop our. So we're really trying to put our money where our mouth is. The third pillar is that we'll still need to provide liquid hydrocarbons. It is clear oil is not going to stop from one day to another, but we're going to concentrate in low cost, efficient liquid hydrocarbons. But with all of this, we will not reach our net zero. So we will invest in carbon capture solutions, in carbon sinks, being nature-based solutions or carbon capture storage. In these four pillars, the first two, which is gas, including hydrogen and green energy, are a perfect match for India's needs. We have, and I come back now a bit to our role and how we envision India. India is a country that is going to have huge surge in energy demand. It has the two key elements: this big population, growing population. In a few years' time, India is going to be the most populated country in the world, and there is significant economic growth in the country. It means that energy demand is going to grow significantly. But how is this growth going to be satisfied? And here we have the role of the authorities. And the authorities have clearly stated that India is different from other more developed countries, but India wants to meet its commitments and fulfill its commitments in the Paris Agreement. So they're going to develop the natural gas market, but they're going to promote the renewables. And we can see all the investment that is being done in renewables, of which we're already part. We now have the Indian authorities that have launched the National Mission on Hydrogen. A few years ago, they launched the National Mission on Renewables, and we see where India is today. So I can only imagine how it's going to be with hydrogen. And we, as an energy provider company, we want to be part of it, and we are going to be part. There is a big future for hydrogen in India.
Jose, so I'll probe you with a more technical question. The big inflection will come when hydrogen does in fact become affordable, and the Hydrogen Council has defined that as €2 a kg. It'll need to be a lot lower in India for us to get there. When do you forecast that will happen? The Hydrogen Council has its own number to be in this decade. And when it does, do you see an OPEC kind of oil index on the hydrogen per kg price, or do you see it as being what your cost is your cost for your geography, because each geography will have a different cost really?
I'll start by your second question, and I really try to never forecast the future, because the only thing I know is that I quite likely will be wrong. So I really don't know how price will be organized. There are so many factors, and linked to your first question about competitivity of hydrogen, because yes, the technical costs need to come down. There are studies now for hydrogen in India which are not far away. I can assure you, not far away from the number that you've mentioned. As Adamo said showed in his slide, the cost of carbon as well is going to have a role to play in terms of the competitivity of hydrogen. So there are many unknowns, and it is very difficult to say a target. By 2030, green hydrogen will be competitive. I don't know. I can say, and I think that it would be a bit fearless on my side to target a date like that. What I know for sure, because I see the investment that companies like Total are doing in terms of hydrogen. As Adamo said, we created our hydrogen business unit less than a year ago, and I can assure you that we have project for launched in France and projects everywhere. Adamo is probably one of the most difficult people to get hold of in the company because he's always very busy. We are investing, as Emma was saying, banks have identified the need for hydrogen as well. So capital is going to be available. What I can assure you is the development is going to take place.
Thank you very much, Jose. Maybe 2 words on whether you see India's big bio waste being a resource to create green hydrogen, or a form of hydrogen. I'm not sure to be green because you need steam and methane and you have carbon dioxide coming out of that. What is your view at Total?
My view is that there's a lot of potential for biogas in India, and it's something that is being promoted by the authorities. There were memorandums of understanding signed last year between the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas and some of the main city gas distributors, including Adani Total Gas Limited, which is a company in which we participate as well. So there is a lot of potential for biogas with waste, and it's something that companies are actively taking a look at it. You'll have the gas, will you have the hydrogen? You need to take a comprehensive look at everything. The problematic of these projects in India is a bit different from Europe. In Europe, you have gas network available anywhere, so regardless of where you put your project, you'll have access to a pipeline network, so you can evacuate your product. Here in India, pipeline distribution is not so much. You have logistic issues. You need to get the cylinders, the transportation of the cylinders. The problematic is different. I think that there is a lot of potential on biogas. I think that there is a lot of potential on green hydrogen as well. As Adamo showed, India is one of the countries with largest potential for green hydrogen. Just seeing the size of the renewable industry and the renewable projects, there is a lot of potential. So there's going to be gray, blue hydrogen coming from waste, green hydrogen. The answer is yes to everything. Not sure yet when, but I can tell you that the industry is working on all those projects.
Thank you very much, Jose. I'm conscious that we are running out of time. We have 2 more presentations and it's 20 minutes to go. So I'm going to wind up this panel with a rapid fire round. It's a frivolous question, and I will pose it to you in its frivolousness because it actually helps bring about some clarity to your answer. If you were in fact sitting in front of the Minister for Renewable Energy in India, and you had to sum up in 1 sentence only your view on what India needs to do to promote rapid adoption of hydrogen or remove the roadblocks for rapid adoption of green hydrogen in India, what would you say in 1 sentence? We'll start with you, Jose.
I'll say, help us getting the demand. For me, hydrogen now is like LNG industry a few decades ago. Anchor customers will launch a development.
Thank you very much, Jose. Coming to you, Arun.
I would say, availability of hydrogen. If I build the vehicles, where can I fill my hydrogen?
Thank you very much, Arun. Build it and they will come. Aymar, from the banking industry perspective.
Well, as I said, the projects need to be viable. So ensure that you support the project through incentive, the time where it will become profitable on its own. And there is many demonstration in the past that as long as the government is there at the critical time at the beginning, then profitability scales comes, profitability comes, and then they've done the job. And that will be super helpful for everybody.
Thank you, Aymar. Coming to you, Sandeep.
I will say the Indian government should have the right policy to implement the hydrogen projects in future with the clear timelines. With this policy, yeah, that's right.
Becomes repeatedly, even in the electric vehicle industry, put timelines and measure them. Thank you for that, Sandeep. And then coming to you, Glenn, perhaps a little bit difficult for you, given that you have a global perspective, but what would you say?
I think there's a huge benefit to Indian society if India strategically positions itself on the right side of the Paris Agreement, and that means investing in technology and investing in the renewable energy ecosystem that technology needs to benefit on. Everybody has more or less said the same thing, so let's do it.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on the panel with you. It's been a very short 45 minutes, but in the 45 minutes, you had some power-packed answers on what India needs to do, particularly in aviation, in railways, in the banking and finance industries, in global mobility, and finally also in the energy sector. It's been a privilege for me, and I've learned a lot. Thank you very much for making the time for IFCCI. Over to you, Tracy.
Thank you, Ravin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ravin.
Thank you very much. That was definitely a very interesting panel discussion. To throw more light now on the topic of green hydrogen for disconnected communities, we have Ravin Mirchandani again, who can please present the case study. I will just give you a presentation presentation. Right, so if you just give me a minute. Yes.
Just let me know if you can see my presentation, please.
Yeah.
Tracy, can you see it?
Not yet.
Yeah, it's good, Robin. We can see it. We can see it.
Oh,
Yes, now
excellent.
we can see it. Yes.
Thank you. All right. Right, starting with that then. Ladies and gentlemen, over the next 10 minutes, I will talk to you about hydrogen as an enabler to the transition economy that we're going through. We've all been through the lockdowns of 2020, and one of the things that everybody realized was we could go back to the era of the 1960s and 70s of India, when we weren't polluting with the internal combustion engine. People in Chandigarh could see the Himalayas, people in Pune could see the stars at night, and one of the beauties of hydrogen is it will take us there in the next 10 years. It will most definitely take us there back to how we used to be in a non-polluting environment, because hydrogen is an enabler of renewable energy. In Australia, it's called firming of renewable energy, because the problem with renewables is when there's enough sun, there's not enough demand, and then when there's demand, there's not enough sun or wind. And what hydrogen allows you is to convert those generation hours into a molecule in chemistry that is non-degradable. Unlike lithium, it does not have a self-discharge rate, and you can keep it for 3 billion years, as we've seen from the Big Bang, and convert it back to energy whenever you need it and transport it very easily as well. So I'll talk to you a little bit about green hydrogen. There's the rainbow of hydrogen. Today I'll focus on green. It's quite simple. You use a renewable energy form, whether it's solar, wind, or wave, to power an electrolyzer. The electrolyzer splits water into hydrogen and oxygen. Water is H2O, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. The oxygen is discharged as enriched air into the atmosphere, and hydrogen is then sent to a compressor into a big storage tank, and then later used either as electricity or compressed through a dispensing station to fill vehicles. What is a hydrogen vehicle? I will spend only a minute on it, but in essence, if I could leave you with a message, a hydrogen vehicle is an electric vehicle. It is no different from a battery electric vehicle, except that you're not raping the environment for so much lithium. You're using 1/10 the lithium and replacing that instead with a hydrogen fuel tank and a hydrogen fuel cell. Hydrogen molecules are converted on board the vehicle to electricity, and then that electricity charges the battery to give you power. So in a sense, it's not a different experience from an electric vehicle, but it's also not a different experience from an ICE vehicle when it comes to recharging. You just go to the fuel station and you fill hydrogen like you would today if you were filling CNG or LPG. It's not a very different experience. You can fill up in 5 minutes and drive away. And of course, hydrogen takes away range anxiety, because a hydrogen vehicle today can give you 500 or 600 kilometers, and you're not worried about what happens in summer or in winter or at 12,000 feet like in Leh or in Switzerland, or whether you're on a bad road. You do not have to learn how to drive this vehicle any differently from an ICE vehicle. So I'm going to run you through 3 case studies, in fact, and these are all from our partner in Sweden, where it has been proven as a technology for small-scale use for individual houses, for disconnected communities, and also for mobility, where you can take hydrogen from the sun or from the wind and actually use it for electricity or for mobility. This is a photograph of a hydrogen filling station in the city of Mariestad in Sweden. It's a very small town in the center of Sweden. It has 220 days of rain a year. And in those 220 days of rain a year, they make enough hydrogen to power the whole city. It's a 250 kilowatt storage of hydrogen, 250 kilowatt solar farm that powers a hydrogen filling station made by Nel. I'll show you some photographs a little bit later. Hydrogen as a standalone power source basically allows you to support large off-peak energy. It removes diesel. Think about islands in Indonesia where they're shipping diesel, or think about the Lakshadweep Islands or the Andaman Islands where we're shipping diesel, the amount of pilferage, the amount of additional cost. Hydrogen also allows you to firm energy, as I said, if you were making solar or wind energy and had no way to put it if the grid was full. So here is the first example. This is an off-grid house in Sweden. It's in the city of Gothenburg. Gothenburg is similar to Pune in Sweden. It has the headquarters of many large companies such as Atlas Copco or ISAB. This house has been off-grid since 2016 and is in the Guinness Book as the most visited house in the world. It's had 5,000 visitors in those 5 years, including the Indian Energy Minister and, of course, the Indian Transport Minister, the Vice President of America, and also the Prime Minister of the UK. This house has solar panels on the roof. It has 16 kilowatts of solar only, a 4.95 kilowatt PEM electrolyzer, and 235 kgs of hydrogen storage at 300 bar, and a 5 kilowatt fuel cell. What you can see in the pictures below is the basement of the house where the power generation unit is. And this comprises of the inverter, the battery chargers, the hydrogen electrolyzer, and a backup generator just in case. With 220 days of rain a year, they are making enough hydrogen to be off-grid, enough hydrogen to have access to use in the summer to put hot water underneath the driveway, so you don't need to in winter, sorry, so that you don't need to shovel the driveway of snow because the hot water from hydrogen does it. Here's some more pictures of what the house and the generation plant look like. This is the town of Mariestadt, which I was talking about. 100% renewable hydrogen filling station made with a very small solar farm, only 250 kilowatts of solar with a 290 kilowatt electrolyzer and 450 kgs storage of hydrogen at 300 bar. I've been here, I've driven that Toyota Mirai sitting right in front of it, and I'm quite impressed that such a small quarter-acre block can make enough solar heated hydrogen to power all the vehicles in the city. They have so much hydrogen that they've offered free hydrogen for 5 years to anybody in the town who buys a hydrogen vehicle, and today are piping hydrogen to the local school to give it free heating as well. Finally, a dwelling of 172 apartments also in Gothenburg in Sweden, where they have a 600 kilowatt solar plant powering a 290 kilowatt alkaline electrolyzer with only less than 400 kgs of storage of hydrogen at 300 bar with 6 fuel cells, small fuel cells at 5 kilowatt. And all the community areas are off-grid. So what's interesting here and what I've been wanting to give you as a message is that renewable hydrogen is here. Yes, it's today here available for countries in the Nordic regions that typically pay high costs for energy and therefore can afford it. But that was the story for electric vehicles. 10 years ago, it was only Norway that was driving a Tesla, and today Tesla is talking about coming to India. So if you wanted to forecast the future, even though Jose said he didn't want to, it would be quite a valid bet to say that within the next 10 years, we would see the first disconnected community in India that is powered by solar or wind hydrogen, either in the Andamans or Lakshadweep or in the Northeast, where it's very difficult to wheel power or very expensive to truck diesel and very complicated to truck diesel. And you will see hydrogen static energy, not just mobility, coming to India very, very rapidly and very soon. So here's the schematic just before I end. Whether you use wind or solar to power the grid, when the grid is full or your batteries are full, you can use an electrolyzer to either power a fuel cell to give you energy whenever you need it, or to put directly into vehicles for mobility. And my company Ador is working on a couple of projects in India today, and I hope that within the next 24 months, we'll have a demonstrator in India that shows that it works. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ravan. Thank you very much, Ravan. That was definitely interesting. May I now request Mr. Sandeep Joshi to please come to please put his camera on. He will present a case study on hydrogen fuel cell passenger trains. Allow me a minute. I will just make you the presenter.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Can you see it?
Yes, we can see your screen. We cannot see your PPT yet.
We can see your PPT.
Perfect. You can see it now.
No, you can see it, Sandeep. You can
That's good.
Screen.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to present a small study on what I have just told you during the panel discussion about the first train manufactured running on hydrogen. So this is a great experience for Alstom and get proud to be the first in the railway domain. So I will just start with the story how it has started. The first initiative started with enabling energy transition and climate change mitigation in transport. So first we were talking about energy efficient trains where there was a target of saving 20% energy. Then it was enabling the transition to sustainable mobility solutions. And from there we moved to decarbonizing operations. So reach carbon neutral operations through a step-by-step approach. So electricity supply from renewables, which was the target earlier. And what is the need of the time? Okay, and how do we achieve rail transport which have the zero emission concept? Okay, so this is just a small comparison. So considerable part of the railway network not electrified. Medium and long-term rising prices for diesel, implementation of CO2 tax. So what is required is alternatives to the fossil fuel. Then legislation and forecast regarding climate protection and noise reduction. So solutions with reduced CO2 footprint and lower noise emissions. Falling acceptance and political discussions about diesel driving ban in urban areas. So compliant technology. And this is how the hydrogen fuel cells technology has emerged. So what are we in hydrogen? So Alstom leadership on the hydrogen train market. First company worldwide in 2018, we introduced a new regional train based on hydrogen fuel cells and batteries. Alstom acknowledges the responsibilities to further decarbonize mobility and thus committed to accompany its clients in this major transition by offering efficient alternatives to diesel trains, developing a regional train powered by hydrogen fuel cells in the most illustrative example. Alstom has signed more than 3 contracts for hydrogen fuel cell powered trains. Alstom holds some patents related to hydrogen fuel cell for railway traction application, including the storage and supply of fuel gas on railway vehicle powered by hydrogen fuel cells. And the last but not least, the designs, the inventions have been done in our European sites of excellence and converts the requirements required for completely design and supply the required vehicles powered by hydrogen fuel cells. Not going into much technical, so what are the milestones? The name of the train is Coradia Island. How this innovation have been put into the flow. Pre-studies were conducted in 2014. 2015 production and commissioning has started, and 2016 testing and validation has been run. The first we demonstrated or put on the floor in the Indo-French. So homologation by EBA. EBA is a German accreditation agency in July 2018. Passenger service in Germany September 18 to February 20. Test operation Netherlands from February 20 to March 20. And passenger service in Austria September to November 2020. So these are the trains right now well proven on the track. Just a general overview. Based on successful Coradia Blend 54 DMU, this is a low floor entrance. Maximum speed is 140 kilometers per hour. Range is 1000 kilometers. No technical components on the passenger area. 150 seats, 1 toilet, flex area, and 0 emissions. This was an accomplishment by putting the first passenger service on track with all the safety norms and all the safety certification, which is called as fuel cell EMU, train configuration and traction system. as we discussed a little earlier, the entire propulsion system has undergone change, and which is being altered or retrofitted to achieve this fuel cell to battery transition. So primary energy supply by hydrogen fuel cells, immediate energy storage by Li-ion batteries to boost during acceleration and to recover kinetic energy during braking. All electrical auxiliary supply is being fed by this. So modern energy supply and storage system combined with intelligent energy management. If you see, all the fuel cell composition in the diagram is on the roof. Hydrogen fuel tank is on the roof. Hydrogen traction. So technical basics, just to explain you very simply, is the train, the distribution, the storage, the batteries, and how these are mounted on the roof of the train. Other applications of green retractioning. In case of electrification, is not economically viable. Traditionally, trains have operated with diesel. However, with countries aiming for carbon neutrality and subsequent bans on diesel, alternative fuel is required. So alternative possible today is low emission solutions, hybrid with batteries, or bi-mode. So either you have hybrid trains to save some energy and to have some less or reduced carbon emission. What are the zero emission solutions? Is the battery operated, which is called as the BAMU, and then is the hydrogen. Hydrogen is preferable to batteries for journeys greater than 100 kilometers and is better than diesel in terms of energy density. So if you see in the diagram on the right side, so when you see diesel, passenger regional services, shunting locos, freight or passenger locos. So these are the basic three applications. If you see the transition, say diesel, so low emission zone, we have hybrid, that is batteries plus diesel, or we have bi-mode, quaternary plus diesel, which achieves the reduction of energy consumption and noise emissions. Last mile option is also available. When you go to zero emission zone, then in zero emission zone, we have only two options available with us. One is the batteries, which target at autonomy and 80 kilometers for regional and 40 kilometers for loco. For hydrogen, target autonomy 600 kilometers to 1000 kilometers. So here we can see the options available for going to green from low emission zone to zero emission zone. And we can see that for the regional trains, what is the most viable option for tomorrow is hydrogen. Some constraints of hydrogen train implementation. That's why when we talked during the panel discussion, I said that what is most important is creating the right infrastructure for enabling this mode of transport. So hydrogen applications has some constraints that need to be considered. Acquisition costs for the hydrogen trains are higher than the standard diesel trains. But ultimately, you save in maintenance and you also save in energy cost. And definitely the biggest advantage is the zero emission. And the studies are on about what is the standard break even when you go in for the hydrogen trains. Requires a hydrogen infrastructure, generation, storage, transportation, distribution, and fuel station facilities. To fully benefit the investment, push for other modes of transport required. Example, hydrogen buses, hydrogen trucks, hydrogen taxis, hydrogen ships, etc. This also leads to hydrogen currently being more expensive than diesel. One of the hydrogen properties that it has lower density. In fact, it is a lot less dense than the gasoline. This means that it has to be compressed to a liquid state and stored the same way at lower temperatures to guarantee its effectiveness and efficiency as an energy source. So summarizing this case study, it's very clear that in future, as I said, next decade will be for zero emission, looking at the climate changes and looking at the initiatives right now taken all across the globe. we have to look in for the zero emission modes of energy. And right now, the only alternative what we can see is slowly going towards the hydrogen transport with the right infrastructure in place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joshi. Now we'll close the session. First of all, I would like to, Tracy, you're back?
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank our event sponsors, Adore Poetron, Alstom, BNP Paribas, Michelin, and Total. It was a great pleasure to have such amazing panelists and speakers during this session, and I would like to thank all of you for your participation. A warm thank to Shri Dinesh Jagdale and Daniel Met for opening the session. I will be very short. And last but not the least, merci beaucoup Tracy and Pranita for coordinating so nicely this session. A specific thanks to Ravin, who helped us coordinating, organizing, and creating this program. Thank you for your input, Ravin. Hope to see you very soon, and meanwhile, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.